The Rooster's Call. The first crow of the rooster, a ragged, hopeful declaration, tore through the pre-dawn stillness. Levi stirred, his body a well-oiled machine accustomed to the ancient rhythm. He didn't need a second call, much less a mechanical alarm. His eyes, though still heavy with sleep, were already searching the gloom of the bedroom, orienting themselves to the familiar shapes of the dresser, the sturdy wooden bed frame. The air was cool, carrying the faint, earthy scent of damp soil and the distant, indistinguishable murmur of the creek. With a practiced movement, Levi swung his legs over the side of the bed. The cool wood of the floorboards offered a welcome shock to his bare feet. He reached for his trousers, folded neatly on the chair beside the bed, and pulled them on. His fingers, gnarled and strong, moved with an economy born of countless repetitions. Next came his shirt, a simple, dark garment that had seen many sunrises. He padded silently to the small table in the corner, where a brass oil lamp stood sentinel. The wick, trimmed precisely the night before, was ready. Levi struck a match. The sudden flare of sulfur briefly illuminated his weathered face, highlighting the deep lines etched around his eyes and mouth, maps of a life lived outdoors, under sun and wind. The tiny flame caught the wick, sputtering for a moment before settling into a steady golden glow. The shadows in the room, previously amorphous and deep, now danced with a life of their own, stretching and shrinking with every flicker of the lamp. The soft lamplight pushed back the darkness, creating a small, warm island in the vast ocean of night. He picked up the lamp, its warmth a comforting presence in his hand, and made his way out of the bedroom. The hallway was narrow, connecting the sleeping quarters to the heart of the home. Each step was deliberate, his mind already cataloging the day's tasks, anticipating the needs of the farm, the family. The silence of the house was profound, broken only by the soft brush of his corduroy trousers and the whisper of the lamp's flame. As he neared the kitchen, a faint warmth reached him, a gentle promise of comfort. The air grew richer, laced with the sweet, nutty aroma of oats and the comforting scent of wood smoke. Sarah was already there. She was always there first, a quiet force of nature that anticipated every need, every hunger. Levi entered the kitchen, the lamplight adding its soft glow to the already present, warmer light emanating from the cast-iron stove. Sarah stood by the stove, her back to him, stirring a pot with a long wooden spoon. Her silhouette was framed by the rosy blush of the coals, visible through the stove's grate. The rhythmic scrape of the spoon against the pot was a soothing counterpoint to the still, dark world outside. "Morning, Levi," she said, her voice a soft murmur, not quite a whisper, but still respectful of the lingering quiet. She didn't turn, her focus entirely on the oatmeal. "Morning, Sarah," Levi replied, his voice a low rumble. He set the oil lamp on the sturdy pine table, its light joining the stove's glow to banish the remaining shadows from the room. The kitchen, with its scrubbed surfaces and simple, functional tools, felt like the true center of their world. He moved to the small washstand in the corner, a basin and a pitcher of water waiting. The water was cool against his face as he splashed it on, chasing away the last vestiges of sleep. He dried his face with a linen towel, its rough texture invigorating. "Oatmeal almost ready?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Sarah's timing was impeccable, a finely tuned instrument of domestic efficiency. "Just about," she confirmed, finally turning from the stove. Her face, framed by a plain white cap, held the gentle, unwavering calm that had always characterized her. Her eyes, a warm hazel, met his, and a faint smile touched her lips. "The boys will be down soon enough, hungry as bears." Levi chuckled softly. "They always are. Young bodies need their fuel." He moved to the small bench by the window, the one that overlooked the silent fields. The sky was still ink dark, but a faint, almost imperceptible grey was beginning to bleed into the eastern horizon, promising the sun's imminent arrival. He watched Sarah as she continued to stir the oatmeal, Her movements were fluid, economical, each action purposeful. She added a pinch of salt, a dash of cinnamon from a small wooden box, her senses guiding her, not a recipe. There was a quiet dignity in her work, a deep satisfaction in providing for her family with her own hands, without reliance on a single modern convenience. The aroma of the oatmeal intensified, a comforting blanket woven with warmth and a hint of spice. The wood stove, its belly full of glowing coals, radiated a steady, consistent heat, chasing away the morning chill. Levi felt a familiar sense of peace settle over him, the kind that came with the certainty of routine, the presence of loved ones, and the simple, honest work that awaited him. He thought of the fields, still sleeping under the night sky, waiting for his touch. The horses in the barn, already stirring, sensing the approaching day. The cows, heavy with milk, ready to be relieved. There was always work, always a rhythm to follow, an ancient dance between man and land. I heard the rooster's first call this morning, Levi mused, his gaze still fixed on the slowly lightening sky. He's a punctual fellow, that one. Sarah spooned a generous portion of oatmeal into a bowl, the steaming mixture a creamy, wholesome mass. She set it on the table before him, alongside a small pitcher of fresh milk and a jar of homemade apple butter. He is, she agreed, a slight twinkle in her eye. Better than any clock. Levi picked up his spoon, the metal cool against his fingers. He looked at the simple, nourishing meal, at Sarah's calm, capable hands, at the growing light in the east. He had lived his entire life by these rhythms, guided by the sun, the seasons, and the unwavering call of the rooster. And as he took his first spoonful of oatmeal, a quiet contentment settled deep within him. It was a good life, a simple life, a life connected to the very pulse of the earth. The day had begun, a simple start. Levi settled onto the worn wooden bench across from Sarah, the rhythmic clink of a spoon against the ceramic bowl the only sound in the lamplit kitchen. The oatmeal, thick and creamy, smelled of toasted oats and a hint of molasses. He took a generous spoonful, the warmth spreading through him. His gaze lingered on the flickering flame of the oil lamp, casting long, dancing shadows across the whitewashed walls. It was a silent meal, born not of estrangement, but of a shared understanding, a quiet communion that needed no words. Each bite was a testament to their self-sufficiency, to the land that provided and the hands that worked it. He chased the last bite with a long draught of cool well water, the clay mug leaving a faint chill on his lips. With a final nod to Sarah, Levi rose, his movements practiced and efficient. He retrieved his heavy canvas jacket from the peg by the door, the fabric stiff with morning dew from yesterday. The air outside was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke. He paused on the porch, inhaling deeply, the subtle shift in the wind a familiar forecast for the day. The barn, a hulking silhouette against the paling sky, beckoned. Inside, the air was thick with the earthy aroma of hay, manure, and warm animal bodies. Bess, his oldest cow, shifted in her stall, her large dark eyes blinking slowly as he approached. "Morning, old girl," Levi murmured, his voice a low rumble. He patted her flank, the coarse hair warm beneath his palm. He settled onto the three-legged stool, the familiar pressure against his thighs. The rhythmic pull and release of his hands soon brought forth a steady stream of milk, hitting the metal pail with a soft hiss, quickly building to a frothy white layer. Bess stood patiently, her tail swishing occasionally, a picture of bovine contentment. He moved down the line, each cow offering her bounty, with a placid acceptance that mirrored the steady rhythm of farm life. Finished with the milking, Levi carried the heavy pails back to the cool storage room attached to the kitchen, the sloshing milk a testament to his morning's labor. He then returned to the barn, his attention turning to the other residents. The chickens, roused by the first hints of dawn, were already clucking excitedly in their coop. He scattered a generous handful of feed, watching as they pecked and scratched with frantic energy. He gathered the still warm eggs from the nesting boxes, each one a perfect, fragile orb, a small miracle of the morning. Next, he walked to the horse stalls. There, his 2 draft horses, Caleb and Bess, named not for the cow, but for her strength and steady temperament, stood quietly, their breath steaming in the cool air. Bess, a magnificent mare with a coat the color of rich earth, whickered softly as Levi approached.
He ran a hand along her powerful neck, feeling the ripple of muscle beneath the skin.
"Ready for a good day's work, girl?" he asked, though he knew the answer. Her ears twitched, a silent affirmation. He checked their water troughs, topped up their hay, and spent a moment brushing Bess's mane, the stiff bristles pulling through the thick hair with a satisfying rustle. He noted the slight wear on one of Caleb's shoes, a mental note added to the day's tasks. The sun was just beginning to peek over the eastern horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink as Levi emerged from the barn. The world was waking up, and so was his day, a sequence of purposeful tasks, each one contributing to the harmonious rhythm of his life. He looked out over the fields, still shrouded in the lingering mist, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling within him. The challenge lay not in the complexity of his work, but in its unwavering consistency, the dedication it demanded, day in and day out, year after year. And Levi, with the quiet strength of the land in his bones, was ready. Plowing with Bess. The eastern sky, a canvas of bruised purples and sleepy grays just moments before, now bled into vibrant oranges and fiery reds, painting the horizon with the promise of a new day. A faint mist still clung to the lowest parts of the fields, shimmering like spun silver in the nascent light, but the air was already warming, carrying the scent of damp earth and awakening flora. Levi paused at the edge of his field, the wooden handles of the plow cool and smooth beneath his calloused grip. Bess, his sturdy draft horse, snorted softly, her breath a visible plume in the crisp morning air, her broad flank a comforting presence beside him. He ran a hand over her coarse mane, a silent acknowledgement of their partnership. Bess shifted, her large, intelligent eye meeting his with an almost human understanding. She was more than just a beast of burden. She was a member of the family, her strength and unwavering dedication as vital to their survival as the fertile soil itself. Her coat, a deep chestnut, glistened with the morning dew, and the powerful muscles in her shoulders rippled beneath her hide even at rest. With practiced efficiency, Levi began the familiar ritual of hitching. He ran his hands over the worn leather harness, checking for any chafing points or signs of wear, his fingers discerning every buckle and strap. The creak of the leather, the metallic clink of the buckles, these were the sounds that marked the beginning of his true work. Bess stood patiently, a monument of quiet power, her head bowed slightly as Levi adjusted the last strap, connecting her to the heavy wooden plow. He whispered a soft word of encouragement, a low rumble that Bess seemed to absorb, her ears twitching in response. Then, with a gentle cluck, Levi urged her forward. The plow bit into the soil with a satisfying crunch, tearing through the earth with a groan that resonated through the wooden handles and up into Levi's arms. The initial resistance was always the hardest, breaking through the compacted surface, but Bess leaned into her collar, her powerful legs digging in, and the plowshare began to carve a furrow, deep and straight, through the field. The rhythm of plowing was a meditation. Step, push, pull. The earth, dark and rich, rolled over the share, exposing worms and grubs to the eager birds that swooped and chirped overhead. Levi could feel the texture of the soil through the handles, the faint grit of sand, the satisfying stickiness of clay, the occasional resistance of a stubborn root. Each step was deliberate, each turn of the earth a testament to generations of labor.
His back soon began to ache, a familiar protest, but his mind was clear, focused solely on the task at hand. The scent of freshly turned earth, damp and earthy, filled his nostrils, a primal perfume of fertility and promise. Hours melted into a continuous cycle of movement. The sun climbed higher, casting long, dancing shadows behind them. Sweat beaded on Levi's brow, trickling down his temples, but he barely noticed. His focus remained on the furrow, ensuring its straightness, guiding Bess with soft commands and the subtle shifts of his body. Bess, for her part, maintained a steady pace, her breathing deep and even, occasionally shaking her head to dislodge a fly. There was a profound connection between them, a silent communication forged through countless hours of shared toil. He knew her every subtle shift, her momentary fatigue, and she responded to his slightest pressure on the handles, his quiet murmurs. He thought about the seeds he would soon plant in these furrows: corn, wheat, oats, the sustenance they would provide. It was a cycle as old as time, one he respected deeply. He wasn't just breaking ground, he was nurturing the future, laying the foundation for their food, their livelihood. The quiet solitude of the field was a balm, a place where the world's complexities faded, replaced by the simple, honest demands of the land. As the sun reached its zenith, casting a harsh, direct light on the field, Levi knew it was time for a brief respite. He brought Bess to a halt at the edge of the field, unhitching her with the same careful attention he'd used to hitch her. He stroked her muzzle, the soft velvet of her nose cool against his palm. "Good girl, Bess," he murmured, his voice hoarse but filled with affection. She nudged his hand, a gentle reminder of her unwavering loyalty. The ploughing was far from done, but the morning's work had laid a solid foundation, a testament to the enduring power of hands, heart, and horse. Midday meal under the oak. The noonday sun, a brassy eye in the sky, beat down, sculpting the furrows with sharp, short shadows. Levi, his spine a testament to seasons of labor, slowly unbent, pressing a hand into its hollow. The steady cadence of the plow, the fecund scent of upturned earth, and Bess's even breathing had long since woven themselves into his morning's fabric. A comfortable weariness settled over him, the kind that promised slumber deep and dreams unburdened. He swiped his brow with the back of a calloused hand, leaving a dirt smudge that merged with the lines etched by sun and time. Bess, sensing the lull, gave a soft snort, her ears flicking, a silent question. "Almost there, old girl," Levi murmured, patting her flank. "Time for a rest, eh?" As if cued, a figure materialized from the distant farmhouse, a small basket swaying gently. Sarah. Even across the expanse, Levi felt the steadying warmth of her presence, an anchor in his quiet world. She moved with unhurried grace, her headscarf a white bloom against the green field. The ancient oak, a silent guardian at the field's edge, offered its dappled embrace, a natural rendezvous. Beneath its sprawling boughs, generations of his kin had broken bread, their voices mingling with the rustle of leaves and the unseen chirrup of birds. Sarah reached the tree, settling the basket onto the sun-warmed grass. She looked toward Levi, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Dinner's ready, Levi. Come on." Her voice, though soft, carried distinctly across the tranquil space. Levi unhitched Bess, guiding her to a trough near the oak for a drink of cool well water. Then he joined Sarah, easing himself onto the soft grass, his joints offering a brief protest before finding comfort. The air around them thrummed with the drowsy hum of insects and the distant caw of a crow. Sarah opened the basket, revealing their simple fare:
A loaf of dark, homemade bread, its crust faintly warm from the morning's oven, lay beside a wedge of sharp cheddar. 2 firm red apples, polished to a sheen, completed the meal. A flask of cool water, beaded with condensation, promised immediate relief. "Looks good, Sarah," Levi said, his voice husky with thirst. He took a long draught from the flask, the water a cool balm to his parched throat. She handed him a thick slice of bread and a generous piece of cheese. "You've been working hard."
Thought you'd be hungry.
They ate in companionable quiet, the only sounds the gentle tearing of bread, the crisp bite into an apple, and the soft rustle of leaves overhead. The bread was hearty, sustaining, the cheese pungent and deeply satisfying. Each bite was savored, a silent acknowledgement of the effort invested in its creation. Here there were no distractions, no hurried glances at screens, no urgent notifications demanding attention. Only the present moment, the taste of honest food, and the quiet solace of shared company. Levi watched a squirrel scamper up the oak's gnarled trunk, its bushy tail twitching with inquisitive energy. He mused on the rhythm of his existence, the predictable ebb and flow of seasons, of labor and repose. It was not a life of grand aspirations or ceaseless novelty, but one of clear purpose, of profound connection to the soil and to the people he cherished.
A deep sense of contentment filled him, a peace as solid and unwavering as the ancient oak above. "Field's coming along nicely," Sarah observed, breaking the quiet. She surveyed the parallel lines of fresh furrows stretching across the field, a testament to Levi's morning's toil. "Aye," Levi agreed, taking another bite of apple. "Good soil this year. Should be a strong crop." He paused, chewing slowly. "Makes you feel connected, doesn't it? To the earth, to what we grow." Sarah nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "It does. It's honest work. You see the fruits of your labor right there." She gestured to the field. "No guessing games." He understood her meaning. In their world, cause and effect were transparent. Diligence yielded sustenance. Care nurtured growth. There was a directness to it, a refreshing absence of the opaque complexities he sometimes heard about from the bustling world beyond their community. His world, though physically demanding, felt mentally uncluttered. As they finished, Levi leaned back against the oak's rough bark. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves, composing a soft, whispering melody. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the sun's warmth on his face, the steady pulse of life all around him. This moment, this simple midday meal beneath the ancient oak, was a precious interlude, a quiet affirmation of their shared life, and a rekindling of strength for the work yet to come. The simplicity was not a void, it was an overflowing. It was the richness of the essential, unadorned. He opened his eyes to see Sarah gathering the remnants of their meal, her movements efficient and practiced. A surge of gratitude for her filled him, for her steadfast presence and quiet strength. She was as integral to the rhythm of his life as the sun and the soil. "Ready to get back to it?" Sarah asked, her eyes holding a faint twinkle. Levi pushed himself upright, a grunt escaping him. "Aye, just about. Best make hay while the sun shines, eh?" He stretched, feeling the familiar pull in his muscles. The break had been restorative, a brief but potent rejuvenation. The field awaited, and with it, the quiet satisfaction of a day's honest work. The workshop's hum. The familiar scent of sawdust and linseed oil greeted Levi as he pushed open the workshop door. The air, thick with the ghosts of past projects, felt like a second skin. His lunch with Sarah, a quiet communion under the ancient oak, had refilled not just his stomach, but a deeper well of resolve. Now, the afternoon's task awaited. A wagon wheel, its spokes splintered from an unseen rock, lay propped against a workbench, a testament to the unpredictable nature of the land. He moved with an economy of motion honed by decades of deliberate work. First, to the corner where his tools hung in orderly rows, each one a silent extension of his will. He selected a spokeshave, its wooden handles smooth and worn from countless hours in his grip, and a keen chisel. But before he could begin, the tools themselves needed attention. A craftsman was only as good as his implements. Levi retrieved the foot-pedal grinding stone from its alcove. Its cast iron frame, scarred and speckled with rust, hummed a low mechanical song as he pumped the pedal. The stone, coarse and dark, began to spin, blurring into a gray disc. He held the spokeshave's blade to its surface, carefully angling the steel. A shower of sparks, bright orange and fleeting, erupted from the point of contact, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the shafts of sunlight that pierced the grimy window panes. The scent of burning metal mingled with the workshop's usual aroma. He turned the blade, ensuring an even edge, then repeated the process with the chisel, the sparks mirroring the intensity of his concentration. His touch was precise, a master's understanding of how metal met stone, how friction begat sharpness. He could feel the burr forming on the edge, a subtle vibration that told him the tool was nearing its peak. A final pass over a leather strop, charged with honing compound, transformed the burr into an almost invisible, razor-sharp edge. He tested it against his thumb, a faint whisper of a cut confirming its readiness. This ritual, repeated countless times over the years, was more than just maintenance. It was a meditation, a reaffirmation of his commitment to self-reliance. With his tools prepared, Levi approached the damaged wheel. He ran a calloused hand over the splintered wood, assessing the extent of the break. It wasn't a simple patch-up. 2 spokes would need replacing entirely, and the felloe, the curved rim section, had a deep gouge that would require careful reshaping.
He took a moment, visualizing the repair, his mind already tracing the cuts and curves, the grain of the wood revealing its secrets to his experienced eye. He began by carefully prying out the remnants of the broken spokes, his movements slow and deliberate, avoiding further damage to the hub. The wood groaned softly in protest, but yielded to his steady pressure. The workshop, once humming with the grinder, now settled into a quieter symphony. The rhythmic scraping of the spokeshave, the percussive tap of a mallet on a chisel, the soft sigh of wood being worked. Each sound was a note in Levi's personal anthem of creation and repair. The afternoon stretched before him, a canvas for his skilled hands, a testament to a life lived in tangible connection with the world around him. Garden's bounty. The late afternoon sun, though still warm, dipped towards the horizon, stretching long shadows across the yard as Levi ambled towards the garden. The midday's fierce embrace had softened, replaced by a gentle breeze that rustled the mature corn stalks lining the fence, their tassels performing a soft, undulating dance. His earlier absorption in the wagon wheel repair, a meticulous ballet of wood and steel, now receded, yielding to a different calling. The garden, a riot of greens and earthy browns, was more than just a plot. It was a living larder, a testament to their foresight and tireless hands. Levi knelt, his joints complaining softly before settling into a familiar ease among the rows. The rich, dark soil, still cool from the morning's dew, yielded readily to his touch. He ran a calloused hand over the broad, slightly prickly leaves of a zucchini plant, a faint smile touching his lips. His keen eyes immediately pinpointed a tenacious purslane, its fleshy leaves sprawling near a cluster of young bean sprouts. With a practiced motion, he dug his fingers around its roots, extracting the weed with a satisfying tug. No chemical shortcuts here, just the persistent vigilance of hands that understood the delicate balance between cultivation and nature's wilder impulses. He moved methodically down the rows, his movements economical and precise. A thick patch of crabgrass, its insidious runners weaving through the delicate roots of a pepper plant, was next. Levi carefully untangled the unwanted growth, his brow furrowed in concentration. He knew each plant, each variety, by its unique scent, the texture of its foliage, the subtle inclination towards the sun.
He knew which ones thrived and which required a little more encouragement, though he rarely voiced his quiet counsel. His communication lay in his presence, his careful tending. The air hummed with the rich scent of disturbed earth and the sweet, verdant aroma of growing things. A lazy bumblebee, heavily laden with pollen, buzzed past his ear, charting a course towards a cluster of marigolds planted as pest deterrents. Levi watched it for a moment, a silent acknowledgement of the intricate web of life thriving in his self-contained world. As he worked, his thoughts drifted, not to the wagon wheel, but to the coming evening meal. Sarah would anticipate fresh produce, and he derived immense satisfaction from providing it directly from the soil. He reached the tomato plants, their heavy branches bowed with fruit, some still green, others blushing with the promise of ripeness. He gently turned a large crimson heirloom, its skin smooth and taut, still warm from the sun. This one, he decided, would be perfect for slicing. He plucked it, the stem snapping cleanly, and placed it carefully in the woven basket he carried. Next, he moved to the cucumber trellis, where fat, dark green cukes hung like edible ornaments. He selected 2 of medium size, their skins slightly bumpy, exuding a distinct, refreshing fragrance. He could already picture Sarah preparing them, perhaps with a sprinkle of dill from their herb patch, a simple, delicious addition to their supper. His harvest continued, his basket gradually filling. A handful of crisp snap beans, their pods firm and vibrant green. A small bunch of tender lettuce, its leaves unwilted and bursting with vitality. He paused at the carrot patch, debating whether to pull a few. They had a good supply already, and he didn't want to deplete the row too quickly. He decided against it, knowing that careful management of their resources was as vital as the initial planting. Finally, he stood, stretching his back, the sun now lower, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple. The garden, though still needing more attention in the days to come, felt renewed, invigorated. He surveyed the rows, the neat furrows where weeds had been, the spaces where bounty now rested in his basket. It wasn't just sustenance, it was a connection, a continuity. Each pooled weed, each carefully selected vegetable, was a reaffirmation of their way of life, a quiet defiance against the swift impersonal currents of the world beyond their fences. With a contented sigh, Levi turned, the pleasant weight of the basket a reminder of the earth's generosity, and began the walk back to the farmhouse. A storm approaches. A cool gust swept through the garden, rustling the remaining tomato leaves and carrying with it the faint, earthy scent of damp soil. Levi straightened, a basket heavy with the day's harvest cradled in the crook of his arm, and scanned the horizon. The sky, moments ago a clear expanse of summer blue, was now punctuated by a single dark bruise low in the west. It wasn't merely a cloud. It possessed a definite, purposeful shape, like a fist clenching. He felt the subtle shift in the air, a drop in temperature that pricked his exposed skin. Experience, etched into his bones from decades of farming, told him this was no ordinary afternoon shower brewing. This felt different, faster. He watched as the dark patch began to expand, its edges blurring into an ominous purple-gray, consuming the bright sky with an unsettling speed. "Sarah!" he called, his voice carrying easily across the yard. No answer. She was likely inside, preparing the evening meal, lost in the rhythm of her own work. He didn't want to alarm her prematurely, but he knew what had to be done. His gaze fell on the 2 small haystacks near the barn, meticulously built over the past weeks, their golden peaks a testament to long, sun-drenched days of labor. Untouched by rain, they represented a winter's worth of feed for Bess and the other livestock. To lose them, even partially, to a sudden downpour would be a grave setback. He felt a familiar knot of urgency tighten in his stomach. Levi set the basket of vegetables gently on the porch steps.
The first distant rumble of thunder vibrated through the ground, a low growl that confirmed his fears.
He moved with a renewed swiftness, his sturdy boots thudding against the packed earth as he headed for the shed. Inside, neatly rolled and stacked, lay several heavy canvas tarps, each one thick and water-resistant. He pulled out two of the largest, their stiff fabric unfolding with a canvasy rustle. They smelled faintly of dust and old canvas, a scent that always reminded him of impending tasks. Hauling the heavy tarps over his shoulder, Levi hurried towards the haystacks. The wind was picking up now, whipping strands of his grey hair across his forehead. He could hear the distinct whisper of leaves in the maple tree by the house, a sound that quickly intensified into a rustle, then a roar. The approaching storm was accelerating its pace. Reaching the first haystack, Levi wrestled with the unwieldy canvas.
It billowed and flapped in the strengthening wind, threatening to escape his grasp. He leaned his weight into it, his muscles straining, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. He threw the tarp over the peak of the stack, then quickly moved around its circumference, pulling the edges down as far as they would go. The wind tried to snatch it away, tugging at the corners. He needed ropes, and quickly. He dashed back to the shed, retrieving a coil of thick sizzle rope. The sky was now a bruised violet, and the air crackled with an almost tangible electricity. Another, louder clap of thunder reverberated, closer this time, and a chill drizzle began to fall, tiny pinpricks against his skin. He could taste the rain on his lips, a metallic, earthy tang. Back at the haystack, he worked with an intensified focus. He threaded the rope under the base of the stack, pulling it up and over the tarp, securing it with practiced knots. His hands, calloused and strong, moved with an efficiency born of repetition. Each knot was tight, designed to hold against the fury he knew was coming. He moved from one side to the other, making sure every vulnerable edge was cinched down. The first haystack was barely secure when the drizzle intensified into a steady downpour. Raindrops, fat and cold, began to drum against the canvas with a growing intensity. He could hear Sarah now, calling his name from the porch, her voice faint against the rising howl of the wind. "I'm almost done," he shouted back, hoping she could hear him over the escalating din. He turned his attention to the second haystack, the challenge amplified by the now driving rain. The tarp, already damp, was heavier, harder to manage. Water streamed down his face, blurring his vision, but he didn't stop. He pushed through the discomfort, his focus solely on the task at hand. His mind conjured an image of Bess, munching contentedly on dry hay in the depths of winter, and that image fueled his resolve. This was more than just work. It was a promise kept, a foundation laid for the future. The wind shrieked, tearing at the trees, bending their branches in submission. The barn groaned under the assault, its old timbers protesting the sudden violence. Levi pulled the last rope tight, securing the second haystack just as the sky ripped open with a blinding flash of lightning, immediately followed by a deafening crack of thunder that seemed to shake the very ground beneath his feet. The rain turned into a deluge, a solid sheet of water that enveloped him, drenching him to the bone in an instant. He stood for a moment, chest heaving, water streaming from his hat, watching the canvas tarps ripple and flex under the relentless downpour, holding firm. A sense of profound satisfaction, cold and wet but resolute, settled over him. He had met the challenge. He turned, his silhouette outlined against the churning grey of the storm, and began his slow, drenched walk back towards the faint glow of the lantern in their kitchen window, a beacon of warmth in the tempest. Mending the roof. The wind howled a primeval song, rattling the very bones of the barn. Rain, no longer a gentle shower, but a furious onslaught, hammered the corrugated metal roof
with the force of 1,000 tiny fists. Levi, soaked to the bone and shivering, ducked into the relative shelter of the lean-to, shaking his head like a wet dog. The satisfaction of the haystack secured was a warm ember in the chill, but the storm felt far from finished. He could hear Bess whickering softly from her stall, a low, reassuring sound against the din. He peeled off his sodden hat, squeezing water from the brim, and ran a hand over his face, wiping away the rivulets of rain that streamed from his beard. The air inside the barn, usually dry and redolent of hay and horse, was now thick with moisture, the earthy scent of damp soil rising from the packed-down floor. A faint metallic tang, almost like ozone, hung in the air, a testament to the storm's raw power. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the small, grimy windows, Levi began his customary post-task assessment. His gaze swept over the stalls, the feed bins, the carefully arranged tools on the workbench. Everything seemed in order, the familiar geometry of his working world undisturbed. Yet, a subtle shift in the sound of the rain caught his attention. It wasn't just the roar on the roof. There was a distinct, rhythmic drip, drip, drip. His brow furrowed. That wasn't right. The barn roof, though old, had been meticulously maintained. He'd patched it himself countless times, each repair a testament to resourcefulness and a deep aversion to waste. He moved slowly, his heavy boots squelching on the damp floor, following the insistent sound. The drip led him to Bess's stall. The mare, usually curious, stood with her head bowed, her eyes half closed, seemingly unfazed by the sudden intrusion of water into her sanctuary. Levi looked up, his gaze tracing the path of the sound to the rafters above. There, just to the left of a sturdy oak beam, a tiny pinprick of light shimmered, catching the occasional flash of lightning. From it, a glistening bead of water formed, grew, and then detached itself, falling with precise regularity onto the straw-covered floor. Drip, drip, drip. It was small, barely a leak, but a leak nonetheless. And in the middle of a torrential downpour, a small leak could quickly become a much larger problem. Water, left unchecked, would rot the wood, mildew the hay, and create a breeding ground for problems. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was an urgent matter of protection. Levi wasted no time. He headed straight for his workbench, his mind already piecing together the solution. From a wooden crate beneath the bench, he retrieved a roll of tar paper, its rough surface a familiar texture under his calloused fingers. Next, he found a tin of roofing cement, thick and black, and a battered old trowel. Finally, he grabbed a handful of roofing nails and his trusty hammer, the head smooth from years of use. He pulled a short, sturdy ladder from its hooks on the wall and positioned it carefully next to Bess's stall. The mare snorted softly, nudging his shoulder with her muzzle as he climbed, her warm breath a comfort in the cold, damp air. "Just a minute, Go," he murmured, his voice a low rumble. "Got a little visitor we need to send packing." Reaching the leak, he assessed the situation. The storm's fury seemed to be concentrated directly over this section of the roof, the wind tearing at the edges of the metal sheeting. The metal itself was intact, but a small, almost imperceptible gap had opened where two sheets overlapped, likely due to a combination of age and the relentless battering of the wind. Working quickly, Levi unrolled a section of the tar paper, measuring it against the gap with his eye. He cut a piece, roughly a foot square, with a pair of heavy-duty shears, the sound a sharp snip that cut through the roar of the storm. Next, he scooped a generous dollop of roofing cement onto the center of the tar paper, spreading it thickly with the trowel. The cold, sticky substance coated his fingers, but he barely noticed. His focus was entirely on the task at hand. He pressed the tar paper firmly over the leak, ensuring the cement created a tight seal against the metal. Then, with practiced precision, he hammered in the roofing nails around the perimeter of the patch, each strike a solid thwack that resonated through the barn.
He started at the top edge, working his way down, creating an overlapping seal that would shed water effectively. He didn't just cover the leak, he reinforced the surrounding area, anticipating future weaknesses. A little extra effort now would save a great deal of trouble later. He spread another thin layer of cement over the edges of the tar paper, blending it seamlessly into the existing roof, creating a smooth, impervious barrier. When he was finished, he ran his hand over the patch, feeling the secure bond. The rhythmic drip had ceased. Silence, save for the continued roar of the storm outside, settled over Bessa's stall. He climbed down the ladder, a sense of quiet accomplishment settling over him. He might be dripping, cold, and a little tired, but the work was done. The barn was secure, Bess was safe, and the storm, for all its bluster, had been met and for now overcome. Levi wiped his hands on a rag, a faint smile playing on his lips. There was always something to mend, something to fix, something to protect. And in that constant cycle of labor and vigilance, he found his purpose, his contentment. Water from the well. The last vestiges of the storm had finally receded, leaving behind a world scrubbed clean and glistening. The air, cool and crisp, carried the scent of wet earth and newly washed pine needles, a profound freshness that filled Levi's lungs with each deep breath. He ran a hand over his tired, damp face, the chill a welcome contrast to the exertion of the past hour. The barn, now sealed and secure, stood as a testament to his vigilance, Bess safely tucked inside, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded above her stall. A satisfied sigh escaped him, a quiet acknowledgement of another task seen to, another challenge met. The rhythmic drip of water from the eaves was the only sound now, a peaceful cadence after the tempest. As the daylight began its slow surrender, painting the western sky in hues of orange and deep purple, Levi turned his thoughts to the evening's routines. The storm, while fierce, hadn't disrupted the fundamental rhythm of their days. Water, ever central to their existence, would be needed in abundance tonight. He envisioned Sarah inside, perhaps already tending the hearth, the warmth of the kitchen a stark invitation after the damp chill of the outside. He walked towards the well-worn path a familiar guide under his boots. The wooden bucket, sturdy and deep, hung patiently, ready for its daily duty. Reaching the wellhead, Levi grasped the crank, its smooth wood cool against his palm. He began to turn, a steady, unhurried motion, the chain rattling softly as it unwound, lowering the bucket into the dark depths. The gurgle of water as the bucket met the surface, then the telltale splash as it filled, was a sound he never tired of. It was the sound of sustenance, of life itself. With a grunt, he began to hoist, the weight of the full bucket, a familiar pull on his muscles. He leaned into the effort. His frame, though older, still possessed a quiet strength born of years of honest labor. The rope, thick and damp, slid through his calloused hands. Slowly, the bucket emerged, shimmering with cool, clear water, reflecting the fading light. He carefully poured the contents into a larger galvanized pail he'd brought, then repeated the process. 3 pails, brimming, would be enough for the evening's washing, cooking, and drinking. Just as he was securing the 3rd pail, he heard Sarah's voice, clear and melodious, carrying from the house. "Levi, are you coming in? Supper's almost ready." Her voice was a warm thread in the cool evening air, weaving its way directly to him. "Coming, Sarah," he called back, his voice a bit raspy from the chill. He picked up 2 of the heavy pails, one in each hand, the metal handles biting into his fingers. The weight was substantial, but he welcomed it. It was a tangible connection to the effort, to the provision. The distance to the house, normally a short walk, felt a little longer with the added burden, especially after the afternoon's exertions. He kept his gait steady, careful not to slosh the precious liquid. Sarah met him at the back door, wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyes, still sparkling with life, held a touch of concern as she took in his damp clothes. "You're soaked to the bone, Levi. Get those inside, then shed those wet things. I've got hot water on the stove for you." He offered her a tired smile. "It's just water, Sarah. Nothing a good supper and a warm fire won't fix." He stepped inside, the sudden warmth of the kitchen a delightful shock. The scent of simmering stew, rich and savory, filled the air, a comforting aroma that promised restoration. He carefully placed the pails near the dry sink, the metallic clang echoing softly in the quiet room. Sarah reached for one of the remaining pails. "Let me get this last one for you, Levi. You look like you've wrestled a bear." She chuckled, a soft, inviting sound. He watched her, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. Sarah, resilient and capable, was his anchor. "Thank you, my dear," he said, his voice softer now. He felt the tension in his shoulders begin to ease, replaced by the familiar comfort of home, of partnership. He shed his wet coat, hanging it near the stove to dry, the damp fabric quickly giving way to the heat. The air, once so fresh and invigorating outside, now held the promise of warmth and rest, a sanctuary after the storm. He knew the feeling of contentment, a deep, abiding satisfaction that settled over him, knowing that the day's work was done, the family was provided for, and the simple, necessary rituals of their life continued, unbroken. The water, drawn with his own hands, would now nourish and cleanse, a testament to their enduring way. Evening's quiet rhythm. The western sky began its slow, majestic transformation, bleeding from a pale gold into streaks of apricot and rose. A cool, damp breeze, a lingering whisper of the storm, rustled through the tall grasses, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant pine. Levi, his shoulders still aching from the day's labor, paused by the well one last time, listening to the gentle creak of the rope as the bucket descended. He'd drawn enough water to last until morning, the cool liquid sloshing softly in the wooden pail. With the well secured, he turned his attention to the last of his evening chores, bringing in the cows. He walked with a familiar, unhurried gait towards the pasture gate, the ground still soft beneath his worn boots. The two dairy cows, Daisy and Clover, were placidly grazing near the far fence line, their dark shapes almost indistinguishable against the deepening shadows. A soft "girls" from Levi, a sound honed by years of repetition, was all it took to stir them. Their heads lifted in unison, large, gentle eyes blinking slowly. He unlatched the wooden gate, its hinges groaning a familiar tune. Daisy, the older and more sensible of the two, ambled forward first, her bell tinkling faintly. Clover, ever the more curious, took a moment to sniff at a patch of clover before following suit, nudging Daisy with her broad head. Levi walked behind them, guiding them with quiet presence rather than forceful commands. He understood the rhythm of their day, just as he understood the rhythm of his own. Their safe return to the barn was the final punctuation mark on a productive day. Inside the barn, the air was warmer, scented with hay and the earthy aroma of livestock. The lamplight, a soft golden glow from the lantern hanging from a central beam, cast long, dancing shadows. Bess, having been tended to earlier, stood calmly in her stall, her coat gleaming. She shifted a hoof, a soft snort escaping her nostrils as Levi passed. He patted her flank, a silent acknowledgement of their shared efforts throughout the day.
He led Daisy and Clover into their respective stalls, securing the simple wooden latches. He checked their water troughs, ensuring they were full, and added a fresh scoop of hay to each manger. The soft sound of their contented chewing filled the space, a comforting counterpoint to the distant call of an owl. Levi ran his hand over Daisy's broad back, feeling the warmth of her hide. He had known these animals for years, watching calves grow into milkers, each one a vital thread in the fabric of their farm. Their health and comfort were paramount, a constant responsibility that brought a deep, quiet satisfaction. As he finished, he heard Sarah's voice again, a melodic hum carrying from the house. "Levi, supper's ready." It was a call that always brought a smile to his lips, a promise of warmth, good food, and shared quiet. He extinguished the lantern, plunging the barn into a deeper, though not total darkness. The moon, now a sliver, cast faint light through the open doorway. He felt his way out, the familiar path to the house etched into his muscle memory. The aroma of roasting potatoes and simmering stew grew stronger with each step. He could hear the crackle of the fire in the hearth, a sound that spoke of comfort and hearth. The transition from the damp chill of the evening air to the welcoming warmth of their kitchen was always a stark, pleasant contrast. He pushed open the heavy wooden door, the warm light spilling out onto the porch. Sarah stood by the stove, her back to him, stirring something in a cast-iron pot.
The simple act, repeated countless evenings, held a profound beauty in its unwavering consistency. He hung his hat on its peg by the door, shedding the day's work with the worn brim. His fatigue, a deep-seated ache in his bones, was still present, but it was a good tired, born of honest effort. He thought of the secured barn, the watered animals, the full well. Each task completed, each resource accounted for, was a small victory, a testament to their self-reliance. He washed his hands thoroughly at the basin by the door, the cool water a brief jolt before drying them on a linen towel. The day was done. The work was finished. Now, there was only the quiet rhythm of the evening, a time for rest, for sustenance, and for the unspoken communion that defined their life together. He turned to Sarah, a gentle smile touching his lips. "Smells mighty fine, Sarah." She turned, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Just about ready. You look like you could use a good meal." Her gaze softened, taking in his tired but content face. "Everything squared away in the barn?" He nodded, pulling out a chair at the sturdy pine table. "Everything. Daisy and Clover are settled." He felt the solid wood beneath his hands, a comforting weight. The day's challenges, the looming storm, the broken post, the endless tasks receded, replaced by the simple, profound peace of their shared space. The world outside, with its fleeting concerns and rapid changes, felt distant. Here, in their kitchen, time moved at a different pace, measured by the rise and fall of the sun, the turning of the seasons, and the steadfast pulse of their enduring life. The scent of simmering herbs and savory meat drifted from the kitchen, a comforting promise after a long day. Levi pushed open the back door, the warmth of the home instantly enveloping him, chasing away the last vestiges of the evening chill. "Levi, supper's on!" Sarah's voice, clear and melodious, reached him from the dining room. He shed his work boots by the door, setting them neatly on the mat, and padded in his socks across the smooth wooden floor. The dining room glowed with the soft, steady light of an oil lamp, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Sarah had already set the table, a steaming tureen of stew taking center stage, flanked by a basket overflowing with thick slices of homemade bread. Samuel, his bright eyes alight with anticipation, sat fidgeting slightly in his chair, while Esther, ever more composed, patiently waited, her hands folded in her lap. "Grandpa!" Samuel exclaimed, a wide grin spreading across his face as Levi took his seat. Levi offered a tired but contented smile. "Evening, my boy. Evening, Esther."
"Evening, Grandpa," Esther replied, her voice soft.
Sarah placed a bowl of stew before Levi, her fingers brushing his arm lightly. "You look weary, dear," she murmured, her gaze filled with warmth. "A good kind of weary," he assured her, picking up his spoon. The first mouthful of stew, rich with vegetables and tender beef, was a balm to his tired body. He ate steadily, listening to Samuel recount the day's adventures, mostly involving a mischievous squirrel and a very determined chicken. Esther occasionally interjected with a quiet observation, often adding a detail Samuel had missed. After supper, as Sarah cleared the table and Samuel helped Esther wipe down the surfaces, Levi retrieved the family Bible from its place on the mantelpiece. The worn leather cover felt familiar in his hands. He settled into his favorite armchair by the lamp, its light illuminating the delicate script. Samuel, having finished his chores, scrambled onto a stool beside Levi, his head tilted in earnest attention. Esther, with a quiet efficiency, brought a small wooden stool and sat on the other side. Levi opened the Bible to a familiar passage, his voice low and resonant as he began to read. He chose a story of perseverance and faith, knowing the children would grasp its simple truth. Samuel occasionally shifted, his imagination clearly painting vivid pictures of the ancient world. Esther, however, sat perfectly still, her gaze fixed on her grandfather, absorbing every word. When he finished, he closed the book gently, the silence in the room filled with the echo of his words. "Grandpa, how did David fight a giant with just a stone?" Samuel asked, his brow furrowed in concentration. Levi chuckled softly. "He had faith, Samuel, faith that God would guide his aim, and he practiced with his sling every day, just like you practice carving." Samuel's eyes widened at the comparison. "Like my horse?" "Exactly like your horse," Levi affirmed. "Skill and faith working together." A few minutes later, Samuel retrieved a small, roughly carved wooden horse from a shelf. One of its legs was split, a casualty of an over-enthusiastic gallop across the parlor floor. "Grandpa, can we fix him?" he asked, his voice tinged with hopeful desperation. Levi took the small horse, examining the damage. "Aye, we can. We'll need a bit of glue and a steady hand." He went to his workbench in the corner, a small, meticulously organized space, and returned with a tiny bottle of hide glue and a carving knife. "Come here, Samuel. Watch closely." He carefully applied a small amount of glue to the split, holding the two pieces together with a gentle, even pressure. "Now we'll let this dry. But while we wait, we can make him stronger." He picked up a small block of wood and the carving knife. "See here, Samuel. When you carve, you must always cut away from yourself, slowly, deliberately. Each cut should have a purpose." Samuel watched, mesmerized, as Levi's skilled hands began to shape the wood, demonstrating how to smooth rough edges, how to create a flowing line. When you make something, you must think about how it will be used, how it will hold up. This horse, he needs strong legs. He showed Samuel how to shave off tiny curls of wood, revealing the grain beneath. "Can I try?" Samuel asked, his fingers itching to hold the knife. "Soon. First, you watch. Learn the feel of the wood, the way the blade wants to move." Levi guided Samuel's hand over the smooth, newly carved surface. "Feel that? That's what we aim for. Patience is key, Samuel, and precision." A good farmer, a good craftsman, a good man. He always strives for precision. Esther, having finished her quiet duties, had drawn closer, observing the lesson with a thoughtful expression. She picked up a stray wood shaving, twirling it between her fingers. "The Lord gives us hands to work and minds to think," Levi continued, his voice soft but firm. "It is our duty to use them well, to make things that last, that serve a purpose."
This little horse, it might seem small, but it brings you joy, doesn't it? Samuel nodded emphatically. Then it's a good thing and worth fixing properly. Levi set the mended horse aside to dry completely. Tomorrow, we'll see if he's ready for another gallop. He looked at his grandchildren, their faces illuminated by the lamplight, reflecting the quiet contentment that filled the room. The day had been long, but these moments, shared in the gentle glow of the lamp, made every effort worthwhile.
Stars and gratitude. The last embers in the hearth cast a flickering, exhausted glow as Levi made his final rounds. He nudged a heavy log deeper into the ash with a wrought iron poker, ensuring it would smolder through the long night, radiating a steady, comforting warmth. The air, though still carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and supper, was settling into the crisp quietude of a winter evening. He listened for a moment, a habit honed over decades, for any unusual creak or rustle from the old farmhouse. Only the rhythmic tick of the grandfather clock in the hall broke the silence, a steadfast heartbeat in the slumbering home. He then stepped out onto the back porch, the heavy oak door creaking softly behind him. The air bit at his cheeks, sharp and clean, carrying the faint, earthy aroma of damp soil and the distant, frosty breath of the woods. Overhead, the canvas of the night sky had unfurled in all its magnificent, unblemished glory. Away from the encroaching glow of distant towns, the stars here were not mere pinpricks of light. They were a shimmering, boundless ocean, each one a diamond chip scattered across black velvet. The Milky Way arced overhead, a shimmering river of light, so bright it seemed almost within reach. Levi breathed deeply, the cold air filling his lungs, a soothing balm after the day's exertion. He could just make out the dark, hulking shapes of the barn and the smaller outbuildings, silhouettes against the starlit horizon. A soft snort from the barn told him the horses were settled, their warm breath pluming in the frigid air. The low, contented bleating of the sheep was a gentle murmur, their collective warmth a small, living engine against the cold. Even the chickens, usually so prone to nervous clucking, were utterly still, dreaming their tiny, feathered dreams in the coop. All was well. All was as it should be. He leaned against the porch post, his gaze sweeping across the vast expanse above. There was a profound, humbling beauty in this nightly spectacle. No electric glow obscured the ancient fires burning millions of miles away. No artificial hum disturbed the quiet symphony of the natural world. This was the same sky his forefathers had looked upon, the same constellations guiding their journeys and marking the passage of seasons. In this moment, under this immensity, Levi felt a deep, abiding connection to something far larger than himself, a thread woven through generations, stretching back to the very dawn of time. A small, genuine smile touched his lips, crinkling the corners of his eyes. He thought of Samuel's earnest face as he'd held the mended horse, the boy's wonder a mirror of his own lifelong appreciation for careful work and simple beauty. He thought of Esther, her laughter bubbling like a clear spring. He thought of Sarah, asleep inside, her steady presence a constant anchor in his life. These were the true treasures, more precious than any earthly gold. His life, though marked by toil and the rhythm of the land, was rich beyond measure. He had a home, built by his own hands, a family bound by love and faith, and the quiet satisfaction of a day well spent. There were no grand ambitions, no clamoring for more, only a steady current of gratitude flowing through him. Each rising sun was a blessing, each harvest a testament to diligent effort and the earth's unending generosity. The cold began to seep through his worn woolen shirt, a gentle reminder that even moments of profound reflection must eventually yield to the practicalities of rest. He pushed off the post, his joints protesting softly, a familiar ache.
He glanced up at the stars one last time, a silent acknowledgement of their enduring majesty. Inside, the house was a haven of quiet warmth.
He moved through the familiar space, his steps light, his heart full. The day had been long, but it had been good. He had shared wisdom, offered comfort, and ensured the well-being of his family and his animals. As he prepared for bed, extinguishing the last lamp, the lingering image of the starlit sky remained, a peaceful benediction. He lay down beside Sarah, her soft, even breathing a familiar comfort. He closed his eyes, the vastness of the cosmos still imprinted on his mind, and drifted into a sleep as deep and untroubled as the country night. Another day's promise. Levi entered the hushed chamber, an oil lamp's low flame tracing dancing shadows across the accustomed space. The air, though refreshingly cool from the open casement, still held the day's lingering warmth. He moved with ingrained ease, shrugging off his work clothes and neatly draping them over the bedside chair. A scent of honest toil, earth, straw, and a wisp of wood smoke clung to the fabric. He donned a simple nightshirt, its soft cotton a second skin against his weary frame. Sarah slept soundly, her breathing a gentle, steady cadence in the stillness. A tender smile touched Levi's lips as he watched her. 50 years, and her presence remained his world's compass, a quiet constant amidst shifting seasons and demanding tasks. He imagined her dreams, likely filled with small triumphs, plump cucumbers from the garden, the precise stitches of a new quilt, or the ruddy glow of their grandchildren's cheeks. Their lives were a finely woven fabric, each strand bolstering the next, creating a rich tapestry of shared purpose and abiding affection. He drifted to the window, parting the simple muslin. Outside, the night was a velvet shroud, stitched with scattered diamond stars. The moon, a fragile crescent tonight, offered scant illumination, surrendering the landscape to the profound mysteries of shadow and stellar light. The air was sharp now, delivering the faint, verdant scent of damp earth and the creek's distant, soothing murmur. Crickets, those tireless minstrels, had commenced their nightly chorus, a rhythmic chirping that filled the darkness with a peaceful thrum. It was a sound that had cradled every night of his existence, a primal lullaby speaking of continuity and the enduring pulse of the land. Levi stood for a long moment, letting the sounds and cool air envelop him. His muscles, though fatigued from the day's honest labor, felt pleasantly stretched, not strained. He considered the neatly stacked firewood, the securely latched barn doors, the contented hum of livestock settled for the night. All was well, all was in order. This sense of completion, of having accomplished what needed doing, brought a profound satisfaction that settled deep in his bones. It was a feeling more potent than any material reward, a testament to a life lived in concert with his convictions and the natural world's rhythms. He thought of his grandfather, whose hands had worked these very fields, whose eyes had scanned these identical stars. He recalled his father, strong and taciturn, imparting the patient craft of carpentry, the imperative of a true plumb line, and the unwavering worth of one's word. Levi felt a deep-seated connection to this lineage, a sense of belonging to something far vaster than himself, a vibrant chain stretching back through generations of diligent, devout men and women who had forged their lives from the land, sustained by faith and arduous effort. He was a vital link in that chain, carrying their legacy forward, not as a burden, but as a sacred trust. With a final, deep draught of the cool night air, Levi turned from the window. He doused the lamp, plunging the room into near total darkness, save for the moon's faint wash through the pane. This darkness was not and void, but a canvas for repose, a blanket of serenity. He climbed into bed, the familiar scent of clean linen and the slight indentations in the mattress a welcoming embrace. The sheets felt cool against his skin, then quickly warmed. He settled in, his head sinking into the pillow. The cricket's song seemed to intensify, weaving itself into the fabric of his thoughts. He closed his eyes, not with apprehension for the approaching morning, but with a quiet anticipation. He knew the cycle would recommence, just as it had for countless days before. The familiar rituals, the purposeful work, the quiet companionship, the enduring bond with the land, all would unfold once more. He pictured the rooster, perched on its roost, awaiting dawn's first blush to ignite its vibrant clarion call. He heard, in his mind's ear, the rustle of straw as cows stirred, the gentle clinking of the milk pail against the wooden stool. He envisioned the sun's first rays painting the eastern sky with hues of rose and gold, chasing away night's last vestiges. Sleep began its gentle claim, a descent into unconsciousness. His final conscious thought was of the coming day's quiet promise, a promise of continued purpose, of shared life, of another opportunity to live simply and faithfully. He drifted off, borne by the cricket's lullaby, ready for the rooster's imminent summons, ready for the timeless rhythm to begin anew.